All right. Hello again, Avengers, and welcome to another exciting daily vlog. This is daily vlog number 261. Today, I have been proven wrong. What do you mean by that? How could you, someone who is perfect and blameless in the world, be ever proven wrong? Well, so remember how I've said in my in-depth review and a bunch of the videos that I've talked about since, I have said point blank, I do not know a single person that has decided to adopt all of the D&D 5.5 rules as a whole. And I said you just really can't do that because there's so many rules in there that are just bad. Well, that statement is no longer true because the D&D Adventurers League has not only decided that all the 2024 rules are going to be legal in the D&D Adventurers League, but they are required. You are not allowed to use the previous rules unless they do not have an updated version. So if you want to use a 2014 subclass that doesn't have an equivalent subclass, you're technically allowed to do that, despite the fact that it won't actually work. Depending on which class you're choosing, because due to how they changed everything, a lot of the old classes simply don't work because, or subclasses don't work because they interact with aspects of the class that don't exist in the 2024 update. So I have not seen a ton of response as far as what the players are saying about it, because there's really not a place that I'm familiar with where it's easy for me to find public response to it. Like, Twitter is a cesspool, so 9 times out of 10, it's really only the most extreme views that are going to be there, whether they're positive or negative. The extremes are the only thing that exist on Twitter. And I haven't really seen it talked about in any of the subreddits that I look at, other than like r/D&D is already extremely anti Dungeons and Dragons. I know, crazy, right? It is. Everybody there just talks about how horrible the game is and how everyone needs to play Pathfinder. It's weird, but it's how it works. But my personal opinion, I have a really complicated history with the D&D Adventurers League. The Adventurers League is how I got the vast amount of experience, or I guess not really, not anymore. It was how I got my start doing D&D 5th edition content. Like, for years, I exclusively ran Adventurers League content because that was the easiest stuff to run. And what I mean by that is not just that it was easy to run as in it took less prep time from me, but the places that I played, that was what the players wanted to play. I did conventions, and I did I organized D&D nights at friendly local games stores. The nights that I organized were massive. We would absolutely fill the store to the brim and then some with players. And a lot of these stores were really small. So fitting that many people in the store was impressive. And in at least one case, the store actually planned on buying more space because there was an empty storefront near them. And they were going to buy more space specifically for us to be able to have more room to play because our groups just kept growing. So that's what I started with the D&D Adventures League. And very soon after I had started organizing for a local store, there was a local convention that was advertising that they needed DMs. I signed up to DM, and then I never heard from the person that was organizing. And so I contacted the management of the convention. I said, hey, when are we going to find out about this? We only have like a month or two left before the convention. I really would like to know what I'm running. They go, the person that was supposed to organize this has ghosted us. If you want to organize it, you are welcome to do it. We will give you the contact info. And so in like a month, I organized an entire convention's worth of D&D Adventures League. Because I did that, I got offered the position of local coordinator for the D&D Adventures League. Now, at this point, the D&D Adventures League was a completely separate entity from Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons. And then there was a lawsuit made by two Magic the Gathering judges that I believe WotC won, but just by the skin of their teeth, and they realized that what they were doing was so close to violating labor laws that they dismantled the entire organization and absorbed it into Wizards themselves. However, long before that happened, I was a local coordinator. I think I lasted something like 6 months. The reason being is the D&D Adventurers League, the actual old organization. I'm not talking about the people that are currently running it. I'm talking about the old organization was so incredibly corrupt and political, not in the idea of, they were all Republicans or they were all Democrats, but it was all run by egos and politics. And backdoor deals, and I've got your back if you've got my back, and stuff like that. It was the most toxic place I've ever been. And as a local coordinator, as a volunteer position, I got paid nothing for it. I got fired from a volunteer position, folks, because my regional coordinator was just a horrible person. Just absolutely disgustingly horrible. They liked to throw around their weight, and one of their favorite things, we were required, in my region, we were required to prove that we were being good local coordinators by submitting basically like reports of all the stuff that we did. And one of the things we were required to do is we had to interact on the Adventures League Facebook page, because Facebook was really big back then. I know that kind of dates me, but and one of the things that my regional coordinator liked to do is they would go on the Facebook page and they would just dole out rulings and basically tell people this is how you are going to play. And they would always end it with hashtag ALRC, which meant Adventures League Regional Coordinator. And that meant you weren't allowed to question it unless you were basically running the D&D Adventures League. And so it was a really, really negative experience. And I got to realize that the Adventures League in and of itself, because it wasn't really run by Wizards of the Coast, it was run and organized by a bunch of people that, for the most part, were people that were not in leadership roles in their own personal lives, that wanted to be in control. And so they used the regional coordinator position to be able to kind of dictate things and feel like they were really important and in control. And that was just the regional coordinators. The people that were above them were actually really nice. I'm still in contact with quite a few of them. But it was just the regional coordinators that were unbelievably toxic, and it leaked into the local coordinators, where the local coordinators that would kind of feed the egos of the regional coordinators had unlimited power in the group to say whatever they want. To give you a good example, there was a player that on the D&D Adventures League Facebook page said, hey, I would like to be a Tempest Cleric, because that was one of the domains that you could choose. However, in the D&D Adventures League rules, it specifically stated that if you were a cleric, you had to choose a deity to follow from the Forgotten Realms, because the Forgotten Realms was where we played. And they had an actual list of deities in there, and the domains that were in their portfolio. If you're not familiar with how that works, basically each deity would have certain domains that they specialized in. I can't remember any of them off the top of my head anymore, but most deities would have either 2 or 3 different domains. And so if you were going to be a deity, or you were going to be a cleric for that particular deity, you were encouraged to choose one of the domains that they kind of held influence over, because that would align most with their goals. The only and the D&D Adventures League did not have the full list of Forgotten Realms deities available. They had a super truncated list that were the approved D&D Adventures League deities. And according to the D&D Adventures League rules, your cleric had to declare what deity they followed in order to play. So this player goes, I want to be a Tempest Cleric because it's a cool subclass, but the only deity on the approved list, and again, there's a lot more deities in the Forgotten Realms, but these are the approved ones for the Adventurers League. And in order to play in the Adventurers League, it had to be one of these deities. The only deity that had the Tempest domain as part of their portfolio was a chaotic evil deity. I can't remember who it was off the top of my head anymore. And so the player goes, well, I don't want to play, because I want to play a lawful good cleric, and it just doesn't make sense for a lawful good cleric to be serving a chaotic evil deity. Do I have to do that? And I saw this post before any of the other local coordinators, just because that's when I logged on. And so I wrote this response. I go, well, if we actually look at the player's handbook, and you look in the section where it's talking about clerics and the domain choice that you make at level 1, one of the things that they mention there is, while yes, it's really common for a cleric to choose a domain that is part of their deity's portfolio, it's not a requirement. It might just be that is the aspect of the deity that you most identify with. Like a really good example, the goddess Selene. Selene is the goddess of the moon, and her domains do not include the Tempest domain. However, if you look at what the moon does, one of the things the moon has a significant amount of control over is tides. It's the reason we have tides. And so if you were a Tempest Cleric of Selene, maybe the thing that you admire most about Selene is actually her effect on sailing and how the tides can be very vicious, and while predictable in the fact that they, you can set your watch by the tides some of the time, they still can, be chaotic and cause issues and the things like that. And throughout this entire thing, I am doing like just shy of APA citations. Like I'm putting page numbers in there and I'm doing direct quotes and things like that and going, so no, if you want to be someone else, go for it. And I didn't sign it with hashtag ALLC, which meant Adventures League Local Coordinator. Because I didn't think I needed to. Another local coordinator comes in, no, what this person says is entirely wrong. You have to choose this particular deity. It's in the rules. And she goes, ALLC, which means I'm not allowed to argue with her. I go, okay, why though? Why would we have to do this? This isn't even a mechanical benefit for them. This is entirely flavor. And the Adventures League really shouldn't be dictating flavor. It makes perfect sense to me. It actually fits within the rules, and there's nothing in the AL that says specifically that you have to choose this. They just recommend it. And then I end it with hashtag ALLC to go, nope, sorry, you don't get to pull rank on me. We're the same rank. And I specifically asked, I said, I actually showed, like I cited my sources. Where are you getting this information? She goes, I don't need to explain myself to you. I told you this is how it's going to be, and I'm a local coordinator. I go, so am I. And I showed you in the book, well, we overrule the core rules. The Adventure League rules are always more restrictive, and you always go with Adventure League rules over that. And so after we argue for a little bit in the comments, my regional coordinator comes in and just says, no, you cannot be a Tempest. If you are a Tempest cleric, you have to worship this particular deity. Hashtag ALRC. And that was it. There was nothing I could do. Because, again, we weren't allowed to argue with them. And the one time I tried doing that, I was chastised. The way that it worked for the AL was there was the open forum to anyone that played in AL, and then there was the coordinators Facebook page where only local coordinators, regional coordinators, and the people running it were allowed to see. And shortly after this, my regional coordinator made this really long post basically saying, hey, we are the ones that decide how everything goes. You do not contradict us. And if you don't like it, you can leave. We gave you the jobs that you have, and we will take them away if we feel that you are not respecting us. And don't even think of going above our heads. You don't get to do that. If anyone else also doesn't know, I have a degree in business. I didn't have my degree at that point, but I did have, at that point, I think I was at like 8 or 9. I was right at the end of my management career. So I had like 8 or 9 years of management experience. And that is a really, really common thing for really, really bad managers to do. And managers that do that get fired because it's a remarkably stupid thing to do. So I have so many stories from the like 4 to 6 months I was in the Adventures League. The funny thing about that, I was a senior local coordinator, not because I was really, really good, is because I had the most seniority, because the regional coordinators were so bad that when they weren't firing people every other week, people were just quitting because they were tyrants. So anyway, going back to the whole purpose of this video, as you can see, I already have a background with the D&D Adventures League. I have not done Adventures League content since I think season 5. So that's a good 5 years ago that I haven't been doing Adventures League content in any way, shape, or form. And the main reason why is the D&D Adventures League isn't real D&D. And what I mean by that is they have implemented so many arbitrary rules and strange things like you don't earn experience in the D&D Adventures League. You earn experience tokens or something similar to that. And you can trade those tokens in for a level depending on what level you are. From levels 1 to 4, it costs 1 token to level up. And from levels 5 on upward, I believe, it costs 2 tokens to level up, which is not how any version of D&D is played. In addition, when you were playing the early days of the Adventures League, when you're playing, every single adventure had at least 1 magic item that you could find in there. And if your party found it, at the end, because your characters get to exist after the adventure, the characters had to decide, or the players had to decide who got to keep the magic item. And there's a really simple way to figure it out. Either everybody agreed and whoever was agreed upon got it, or whomever had the least number of magic items, if they wanted it, they could get it. It would basically go to whoever wanted it that also had the least number of magic items. And if there were 2 people that had the same number of magic items that wanted it, they rolled for it. It was an unbelievably simple system. That's not how it works anymore. When you play an Adventures League game, or at least it was when I finally stopped playing, I don't know if they got rid of this god-awful rule. When you play an Adventures League game, you get what's called a treasure token. And so at the end of the game, each adventure still has a magic item, but nobody gets the magic item. However, it gets unlocked. If you've played that adventure, it gets unlocked for your character to be able to buy using a treasure token. And in general, you would have to play at least like 3 or 4 games to get enough treasure tokens to afford a single magic item, which isn't 100% off from how often you would be getting permanent magic items the old way. But now you just went to Forgotten Realms Walmart and picked out the magic item that you had unlocked. And that's not how D&D works. I do not know a single D&D game that runs the way the D&D Adventures League runs. And so I got sick of it, and I stopped playing a long time ago. However, it doesn't mean that I don't like the D&D Adventures League adventures. I helped start up a D&D program for a buddy of mine for his streaming community that has since kind of fallen to the wayside, but as soon as I have a little bit of extra time, I'm going to see if I can't revitalize it again. With that, I actually had them running old D&D Adventures League modules because they're really, really great for new DMs. They require relatively little prep time compared to running a real game, and they teach you a lot about how to build adventures. They're fantastic for things like that. Now, not all of them are amazing, but they're okay. So now that the D&D Adventures League is back to its old tricks of we are going to tell you we are going to dictate how you play D&D, and if you don't follow our rules, you're not allowed to play with us. And they're making the dumb decision of, well, we're just going to use all of these really bad rules at the same time, and you are not allowed to use the old ones. Despite the messaging from Wizard of the Coast that, well, this is just an update, and if you like the old rules, you can use the old rules. And they say that in the 2024 Player's Handbook a few times, too, if I remember correctly. Or I might just be thinking about articles that were talking about it. I'm not sure. My memory is super, super bad. So, yeah, if I were a betting man, I would say that the D&D Adventurers League has just gotten significantly less popular and might be in danger of being replaced by something else. Because, again, this is their MO. This is how they do things, is they will go, we will tell you how you will play D&D, and you don't get to question us, or you're not allowed to play. And that was never the purpose of the Adventurers League. The Adventurers League, technically the Adventurers League is what used to be the RPGA, the Role Player Game, I think is Role Playing Gamers Association. And what that did is it ran this thing called Living Forgotten Realms, which was just an organized play campaign set in the Forgotten Realms, and it was actually amazing. It started in 3rd edition or 3.5, I can't remember specifically when, but it started around that time. And the most interesting thing about it is it actually dictated what happened in the Forgotten Realms. As in, when people played adventures for the first time, they would tally up, like people would report what decisions they made in the adventures, and whatever the most popular decisions were amongst all the people that were playing would become canon Forgotten Realms lore. And that's actually how the D&D Adventures League first started. On a lot of the adventures, there would be either a QR code or a website you could go to report how your party, what decisions your party made. That doesn't happen anymore. Yeah, I think this is a massive bad move from the D&D Adventures League, but it fits with their MO of they make bad decisions and then they force the players to play for it or to pay for it. So that in and of itself, fine, whatever. I get it. But I was also reading a few things. I've seen some posts about being a professional DM. For anyone that doesn't know, that's a job now. And I actually know a couple people that's how they make their living, is by being a professional dungeon master. And the thing with being a professional dungeon master is I've seen a lot of people give tips and tricks on how to do it, but in general, the way that you can actually make a living being a dungeon master is, first of all, you have to run a lot. In general, you are running anywhere from 4 to 6 nights a week. You are running at least one 4-hour game. And in order to be able to do that, generally the easiest way for most professional dungeon masters to be able to do that is they run pre-written content, whether it's Adventures League stuff or published, we call them hardcover adventures. Things like Ravenloft or Curse of Strahd is an unbelievably popular one to run over and over and over again. Or stuff like that tends to be really, really popular because, again, prep time is lower, and you can run those same adventures over and over and over and over and over again for new people each time, and just make a decent amount of money. I don't know anyone that's making like 7 figures being a professional DM, but I do know a few people that are making more money than I ever made running multi-million-dollar stores. So, and that's not everybody. Just because you become a professional DM doesn't mean you're going to make shit tons of money. I know a lot of other people that are doing it and are not making much money off of it. But that's one of the tips that I've seen repeated over and over again is do pre-written content. Even if you're doing your own thing, pre-write your content so you can run the same adventures over and over again, because it's just going to make your life easier. And the likelihood of you running the exact same group and being able to make a living off that is not very high. More likely than not, the way that you're going to be able to make a living off of this is running one-shots. One-shots, two-shots, limited series, things like that. Because eventually your players are going to stop playing for a multitude of reasons. And then you're going to have to find a way to get new players. And they have websites that are dedicated to helping people find paid DMs to run games for them, and for DMs to be able to have people play things like the looking for games on Roll20. You can charge for games on Roll20, and they have a thing where it will say free games or paid games. There's a couple different websites you can go to. I can't remember any of them off the top of my head, but it is a viable career choice as of right now. Don't know what the future of it is, but as of right now, you can make enough money to live meagerly off of, which again is really, really cool. But the issue that I have with it now with D&D is by far, if you want to be a professional DM, or if you want to be a professional game master, running D&D is the absolute best way, because you have a market of tons of people that want to play and just not enough dungeon masters. So running pre-written D&D 5e stuff right now is by far the most lucrative way to be a professional game master or dungeon master. However, with this 2024 nonsense and just how bad the update was, I don't think that's going to be true for much longer. There are paid DMs that run non-D&D stuff. I'm not saying that it doesn't happen. I'm saying it's harder to do. And now I'm starting to consider whether or not it might be better to start looking at other systems. If this is how the Adventures League is going to go, and again, the Adventures League is by far the easiest thing that you can run, because as long as you follow their rules, if the game is run online, it still counts for the players. So if a player wants to level up their character before the next convention so they can run higher level stuff, or just to be more powerful when they go to the convention, they can play in online games. And again, as long as the online games follow the rules of the Adventures League, they're considered legal. And they have been considered legal Adventures League games since almost the start of the Adventures League. Online gaming, when 5th edition first came around, Roll20 had only been out for a couple years, and it really, really sucked. And running games online was just really not all that commonplace. A few years after it started, then we started having Roll20 be significantly more solid. What was it? I think Foundry came out in 2016, I want to say. They started having a lot more virtual tabletops that were easier to do things for. So yeah, with what's happening in the Adventures League, I don't think it's going to be in anyone's best interest to be running D&D Adventures League stuff if you're a professional DM, or even just an amateur DM that wants to run Adventures League stuff, because this particular ruling is going to piss off a lot of players whose characters now are completely worthless, because the feats that they chose have been translated into completely different feats that don't do the same thing, and what used to be a really powerful character is going to become completely worthless. And there, again, according to the rules, as soon as a book becomes published worldwide, you have 60 days from the point that it was published to update your Adventures League character. And if you show up at a table with an unupdated character, they specifically say you don't have to call them out right then, but you do have to tell them that before your next session, you have to update to the new rules. You won't be allowed to play. Again, the tyranny of the Adventures League shows its ugly head, and I think it's going to piss off a lot of players. Either they're going to have to backtrack on this rule, which they have done many times before. They have made really, really stupid rulings, and then they've been forced to backtrack when people went, this is monumentally stupid and we're just not going to play with you if you continue doing these stupid things. It was one of the reasons why when the Adventures League eventually got absorbed into Wizards of the Coast, none of the regional coordinators got jobs. Only the higher-ups were actually absorbed into Wizards of the Coast, and all the regional coordinators were told to pound sand. Like I said, and I know a few people that actually still interact with a few of them, and have had very, very good interactions with them. And it's perfectly fine. It's possible that the Adventures League in and of itself just brought out a bad side in them, and they're actually wonderful people. I have a bad taste in my mouth. I will not voluntarily work with anyone that was a regional coordinator because of what happened during the D&D Adventures League. And yeah, if that means anything to you guys, I hope you guys can see what I'm saying here. But if you want to deal with them, that is perfectly fine. I will not condemn anyone for deciding that I am wrong about another person. It's perfectly fine. You like them, you play with them, that's fine. I'm just not going to. So, yeah. Anyway, one of the reasons I wanted to do this is I am curious for all of my fans that are not purely D&D. And I'm not saying if all you play is D&D, you're somehow wrong or anything, but you're not going to have any information about this. What are other systems that have really good pre-written content? I've run some Cypher System stuff. Specifically, I've run an Adventure from the Strange. That was a lot of fun, and I have a lot more adventures that are pre-written for that I think are really, really great. So I'm already familiar with some of the pre-written stuff for the Cypher System, but if you know a particularly good Cypher System pre-written adventure, whether it's Numenera, The Strange, whatever, let me know. I'd be interested in that. But any other systems that offer really good pre-written adventures. I know Renegade actually has an organized play program, kind of, that I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head. But they release adventures for convention play and stuff like that. I have never seen any of those adventures, so I don't know the quality of the adventures. The one adventure book that I've purchased for an Essence 20 game was Adventures in Angel Grove, and overall I liked the book, but there was a few things in there where I'm like, this was a bad idea. But overall I thought it was pretty good, and I like the Renegade people in general. So again, if you know of any pre-written adventures for Essence 20, for the Cypher System, for 13th Age, whatever system out there, Vampire the Masquerade, Call of Cthulhu, any pre-written adventures that are particularly well written, where players will enjoy playing them, and they're not incredibly difficult to run for the DM. Let me know in the comments, because I'd love to start making a list of, hey, do you want to become a professional DM? Here are some resources for you. Start with pre-written adventures. Again, it's a lot easier to get people to play Curse of Strahd than it is going to be to get people to play Adventures in Angel Grove or Dark Skies over Equestria. Just because D&D market significantly larger than the Power Rangers market or the My Little Pony RPG market. It's just how it works. But it would be nice that if someone comes to me and goes, hey, I want to be a professional DM, where should I go? I'd like to be able to have a list of, hey, if this is the system that you want to run, here are some adventures that are easy enough to run and that either have the name recognition that are going to invite players, or the descriptions of the adventures are enticing enough that players are going to want to play them. So yeah, like I said, I know I have a lot of RPG fans in general out there. And I will even open this up to the Pathfinder bros, because I know that there are Pathfinder fans that watch me as well. Are there particularly either well written or just really well known Pathfinder adventure paths that if you say, hey, I'm running this particular adventure path, people are going to show up for it? Let me know in the comments down below. Like I said, I would love to build a little database of these are great for beginning pro DMs or amateurs that just want to get more experience. So anyway, it's all for me today. I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.